Welcome back to the Inward Nine, a fantasy golf metrics production. My name is Jeff Ulrich, and today we're talking the Greenbrier, or a military tribute at the Greenbrier, as it's officially called this year. We'll do a quick Quicken Loans recap, and we'll do some Open Championship discussion too. We'll talk about what's going over on the European Tour as well, because it's another big event, the Irish Opens this week. We'll recap the French Open. But it's just me this week. I'm going solo. Steve is a little bit busy with the July 4th weekend. Obviously, I'm in Canada, so we already had our big national holiday. So it'll just be a quick solo pod by me. We'll definitely go through the DraftKings salaries this week. We'll talk a little bit about what's looking interesting for fantasy, for betting. And like I said, we'll dive a little bit deeper into the Open Championship that's coming up in a couple weeks. Some guys I got my eye on, especially after last week. But let's talk about the Quicken Loans to start off. Look, it was either you rostered Francesco Molinari last week or you didn't. He basically did what I think everyone was expecting Paul Casey to do last week, which is just blow everyone out in the final round. 8-shot win, I think it ended up being. I'm not even sure how many shots it was. I didn't even pay attention at the end. Obviously, a dominant performance by him. I wrote him up in the article on Fantasy Golf Metrics as a perfect GPP play last week. I didn't necessarily listen to myself, but he was there. He was obviously, if you really looked at it, outside of Tiger Woods, probably the best player in the field. There's obviously some other quality players at the top. Obviously, Ricky was there as well. But, outside of Ricky at the very top, he was probably the next best. And he was probably the guy capable of blowing out the field like this outside of a big Ricky win. So congrats to him. The guy's finished first, second, or first now in three of his last four starts. The only exception being the U.S. Open, obviously. And it's going to be really interesting with Molinari when we get to the Open Championship, especially for DraftKings purposes, because if he's just a little bit undervalued, he's probably going to be super chalk. Doesn't necessarily have the best Open Championship record. It's not terrible by any means. I'll go over it right now. He's played it a lot. He's played it a lot since 2012. His best finish is T9 back in 2013. But, going back the last 3 years, is T40, T36, and then cut last year. So it's not like he's the greatest links player in the world. I'd almost say his game sets up better for some of these American setups, but he's in such good form right now. I'm not sure it matters. So definitely something to keep an eye on as we go into the Open. I'm not actually sure what his betting odds have dropped to either, but I imagine they went down pretty good after last week. So if you're interested in getting in on him, you might have already missed the boat. I'm just going to look him up quick. Yeah, he's down to 33 to 1 on Bet365. So, there's not much juice left in that for a guy like Francesco Molinari for the Open. But anyways, really dominant performance by him. Obviously, some good performances from some other players in the Survival Guide last week. Some of the scrub players is the best way I can put it. Really performed well. We actually had Zach Blair ranked pretty high. We had Brian Gay ranked very high. He was in the core plays for me last week too. He came through at 7,400. Wasn't quite as chalky either as I thought it was going to be. So Brian Gay was a really good call by the Survival Guide. Had him ranked really high in the first class. It was just one of those weeks though, where you either took the Molinari dive and you believed in him or you didn't. It almost didn't matter what you did with the other picks if you didn't have some exposure to Francesco. So kudos to everyone who did. Hopefully you took that GPP play and used them and mixed them in with some Brian Gay or something and had a good week. But otherwise we move on. Quicken Loans, not really a tournament that impressed me very much. Quite frankly, the blowout just highlighted the fact it was a super weak field. It was nice to see Tiger play solidly. Again, he just looks like he's getting a little bit closer, figured out the putter a little bit. Still looking like he's getting back into competition form for me. I know some people are, it's easy to poke holes at. I don't know, man. You got to remember, this is a guy who's taken a couple of years off playing competitive golf. You don't just walk back in and dominate, especially at his age. So, if he was like 30 or something, I think you might see him get back a little quicker. But I still feel like there's better things coming for Tiger down the road here. Maybe not this year. Maybe it's like the beginning of 2018. But just another positive week. No injuries. He's getting more settled. I like it. It's so cool to see. And if you did notice on Twitter some of the galleries that were following Tiger last week, that's pretty much all you need to know why Tiger Woods is good for golf. So very cool to see him have another positive week at his own tournament. Other than that, really not much else to say about the Quicken Loans. Just a tournament that I'm happy to move on from. This week, going to the Greenbrier. It's basically the same field. It's basically the same field minus a couple guys at the top, and then we've added a couple guys. So Phil, Bubba in the field. Tony Finau is back. Obviously Molinari's not playing. Tiger's not playing, but we've added a couple guys instead of them. Other than that, the field looks quite similar, to be honest. And it's not necessarily a good thing, but at the same time, I mean, it's going to pique my interest a little bit. I mean, this has generally been a pretty competitive tournament. Same venue as always, TPC, the old White Course, it's called. Had some renovations done. I believe it was back in 2012. They lengthened it a little bit, made it a little bit tougher. This was, of course, Stuart Appleby shot 59 on in the final round. Like I think it was 2009, 2010, somewhere around there, and won. So used to play really, really easy. Doesn't play quite as easy anymore. You can still go pretty low here, though. Winning score has gotten as low as minus 16 here. I think it was minus 14 last year. Xander Schauffele got his first win here last year at minus 14. And it was really just like it was like a mini Molinari performance. Is that he was pretty dominant tee to green, very good off the tee. I think he was like 5th strokes gained tee to green, but he was also top 10 strokes gained putting last year. So we've kind of seen that from a few of the last winners here. Guys who've had decent to really strong tee to green weeks, but then you also have to putt well here, and that kind of bears out if you go to the course snapshot tool on Fantasy Golf Metrics. You look at the strokes gained putting info for players who finished in the top 10 for winners, and it's a little bit higher than average. So you're not just going to necessarily need to target the strong tee to green players here, but the strong tee to green players who are trending towards a good putting week. Guys are going to have to putt here if they want to win. Doesn't necessarily mean that they can just be crappy ball strikers or something, but because it does. We've seen some players have really strong weeks off the tee. Or Angel Cabrera just decimated the ball for 4 rounds in 2014 off the tee, and got his first non-major win in America. I think it was in 2014. Hasn't done anything since, but that kind of performance is very similar to Schauffele's last year. So. And just before I get any further, too, make sure if you haven't checked out the site, fantasygolfmetrics.com, I mean, do it, because on top of all these great tools, you're getting access to the things like the survival guide, which has a bunch of great information, the lineup builder, obviously all the stat searching tools are there as well, but there's a lot of other things that come in, the subscriber chat, the articles, and it's only for $5 per week, so make sure you do check that out at fantasygolfmetrics.com. Be tweeting some stuff out from there later in the week, but as I always say, it's the best deal in fantasy golf, in my opinion, and we're coming up to the Open Championships in a couple weeks, so getting on the monthly option, which is only $15, this is a really good time to do it as well. And maybe even be looking on the lookout for some possible promos coming up next week. Got to discuss that with Steve, but we'll see. Anyways, back to the tournament. Again, this field isn't much changed from last week. So at the top, I mean, Tony Finau at 11-5. I mean, look, this seems like a great spot for Tony Finau to get his first win. It really does. He's coming off the U.S. Open. We shouldn't have any concerns about his ankle anymore. There's no par 3 contest where he can break his ankle the day before. He's 7th here last year, T13 here. I think it was in 2015. Like I mentioned off the top, strong drivers of the ball have done well here. Guys like Schauffele and Cabrera who can hit it long but are also semi-accurate. So it's just 11-5 for Tony Finau, man. I mean, it's hard to click. He's 12-1 in betting. Look, if you want to go there and hope for the same thing that happened to Molinari last week, I understand it. It's a weak enough field where I can almost get behind that. I'm not going to do it personally. I might have a little bit of exposure to him in fantasy, obviously like a GPP lineup or something like that, depending on how many I make this week. But, it's strange to see him as the favorite, even in a weaker field like this, especially with guys like Bubba and Phil in the field, and Webb Simpson. I wasn't actually sure if he was going to be the favorite, but I guess they made him it. It's an interesting situation for Tony Finau this week. Really going to test Tony Finau lovers. If they want to pay up for 11-5 and just go all in. And you know what? Saying that strategy might not be a bad idea. I mean, if you really feel like this is the spot for Finau to have a week like Molinari, his price is going to drive ownership down. There's no doubt about it. There's going to be a lot of people like me who are just scoffing their noses saying, I'm not going to go all in on Finau. I might get a little bit of exposure to him, but I mean that might keep his ownership down to really lower levels. We'll see as we get later in the week. I mean, I'm not the ownership projection guy, obviously, and that's another thing you get exposure to if you get the subscription to Fantasy Golf Metrics. You get very good ownership projections every week. We do a 4% range every week for players. So those come out on Tuesday night, usually preliminary, and final ones Wednesday night. But we'll see when those come out where Finau is lying. But I mean, if he is going to be 15% or lower, it'd be a good week to just jump all in on him and see what happens. So interesting week for him, anyways, coming up. You know, the guys below him, Phil Mickelson, Bubba Watson. If you're not that familiar with the venue, the Greenbrier is like a big vacation spot. These guys often come here. I think they both have houses. I know Bubba has a house here. I think Phil might too, but I don't know. I just always, you do have to question some of their motivation here this week. I'm not saying they're just here to like do nothing and miss the cut, but Bubba's played well here a few times. He's never won, never really been in contention, but he's perfectly capable of winning again. And I mean, it sounds crazy, like Bubba Watson, 4-time winner, but on tour, especially after last year, but he could easily come in here and do exactly the same thing he did at the Travelers. It's an easy enough course where I think Bubba feels comfortable here. Like I said, it does favor strong play off the tee, and Bubba's been strong off the tee all year. So, you know, if you're asking me between him and Phil, I'm probably going Bubba. Bubba, I assume, might get a little bit popular again, but it's interesting to see. One other note too, like I don't have the survival guide this week, so I'm just kind of going off my own feelings here for the week, getting out of pod early, but the survival guide will be up likely tomorrow on Fantasy Golf Metrics with all the rankings and stuff like that you're used to seeing. Make sure if you are using the survival guide, you check out those other tabs too, giving you like information of who's trending in what categories and stuff like that. Tons of useful stuff in that spreadsheet, which you can download from Fantasy Golf Metrics if you're a subscriber. And then, you know, you go below Bubba. I mean, Webb Simpson, probably going to garner really low ownership. I will say this about Webb Simpson. Pretty good record here, I do believe. Or maybe I'm thinking about the Wyndham. No, he's got a pretty good record at this event too. So, third here in 2014. I think he had like one crazy low round that year. But he's top 10 here a lot too. So this might be a good bounce back spot for him. You know, if you're into like really low ownership guys, he might be the target. And then you got Russell Henley and Xander Schauffele. Schauffele's missed 3 out of his last 4 cuts, but he's also finished T2 at the Players and T5 at the US Open. So I don't know what to expect from him, to be honest. He has been all over the place, missing cuts, and then like just dominating in these stronger field events. He could easily just bounce back here and just get it together. I mean, he just seems like he's kind of all over the place, and that he can't avoid the blow-up round, but when he does, he's dominant. So interesting spot for Xander Schauffele. I have a feeling he might be lower on too. But Russell Henley for me is the guy. And if you've been following me on Twitter at the Fantasy Grind on Twitter, you know the last event Russell Henley played, he led the field in greens and regulation, led the field in scrambling. I believe he led the field in driving accuracy too at the Travelers, and he still lost by 4 strokes. So he was really close at the Travelers. He needed to sink a few more putts there. Obviously, really nothing wrong with his game right now. He led the field at the US Open after round 1. But look, Russell Henley, 7 of his last 12 rounds at this venue have been 68 or better. He's been 5th here the last 2 years. He's a player who can get really hot with the putter. So I really feel like the way his game is trending, if Russell Henley has a top 10 putting week, and I'm talking like top 10 in this field, I think he's going to win. I really do. His game is trending so solidly in every other category right now that he really looks like a guy who's focused, who's, again, just one putting week away. He looks like Webb Simpson before the Players to me, is probably the best analogy. So we'll see. We'll see if it comes together here. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe he's playing next week or what. But I don't mind paying up $10,400 for Russell Henley. I really don't. And I'm just basically going to shove on him. I don't have any problem rostering him. If he gets really popular, that's fine. But like I said, he was so solid at the Travelers. This is a venue he's also played very, very well at in the past. Not much not to like. So the betting odds look pretty crazy, 20-1. I'll probably still bite the bullet there. I know it's short It's not, you're not getting any value, you're not getting any juice, but he is trending very, very solidly right now. So just keep that in mind. And I think this venue sets up well for him. So Henley definitely on my radar, even though he's higher priced. Going down beneath him, Neiman is in a really interesting spot. He seemed to be one round away lately. He played really solidly last week. 3 rounds in the 60s. He played well here last year too. I think he had one blow up round here last year. Otherwise, he could have been right in the mix with Schauffele. Definitely a spot for a tee to green monster like Neiman though. You're getting better betting odds with Neiman too, I would say. I don't love the price at 9,700, but he's in a way he's a lot like Henley. If he gets the putter going this week too, I mean it could be his week. So both those guys, I mean, I would get some exposure to this week personally. Somehow I'm a little bit higher on Henley just because he's a veteran and I trust him a little bit more with the course history. But Neiman looks really close, and I wasn't really that high on him last week, but with another solid week in the bag here, I keep saying that it's more likely to be next year for Neiman to have that breakthrough, but the more I see of him, I'm leaning towards it might be really soon, like this year, like in the next couple weeks. So we'll see. I think this is a spot where I don't mind paying up for him though, especially with, like I said, it's the same field as last week. So Brian Harman beneath him though is interesting too. His ball striking was really solid at the U.S. Open. Followed that up with another solid week at the Travelers. Just a guy who's probably going to go overlooked here because Neiman's up there, because Henley's up there. Walker and JB Holmes are way cheaper than him. He's kind of in a dead zone. I like him this week. I believe his course history is fairly solid here. Actually, he hasn't played here since 2015, so that's only going to drive his ownership down more. I don't mind paying up for Brian Harman, though, this week, especially if we're going to get low ownership, so that's something to keep in mind. Below him, JB Holmes, this should be a really good bounce back spot. I was pretty hesitant on JB Holmes. I know Steve liked Holmes last week. I did not. 10K coming off like a couple good performances. It just felt like a regression spot. This feels like a bounce back spot. Now he's cheaper. He's got solid course history at this venue, and it does favor drivers of the golf ball. And JB Holmes lately has been killing it off the tee, and not just with driving distance, but with accuracy and distance. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of that. Angel Cabrera coming in here. Wondering if JB Holmes can kind of have a similar week. Another player who, if he just gets it going with the putter, might just be one hot putting week away. I know he looked terrible last week, but like I said, he was kind of due for maybe just a little bit of aggression. I think it's a bounce back spot for JB Holmes. I'll be getting right back on him. And pretty much the same story with Ryan Moore. Look, I was pretty much all in at the Travels at Ryan Moore. I basically took him over Bubba. That worked out horribly, but now he's cheaper. Now people are off him because he burned everyone. He's really not playing bad. You go back 12 weeks, Ryan Moore is still the leader in most strokes gained categories, or near the leader in this field in most strokes gained categories. His putter has been cold all year. I can't say for certain that it's just going to pop up here. He has not played. I don't believe he's actually played this event. I don't want to say ever, but he definitely hasn't played here since 2012, since the redesign or the renovations. Maybe it's 2010, the renovations. I can't remember, but he hasn't played there since then. So we don't have any course history. I don't think that's a negative at all. Actually, this course has seen a lot of first-time winners, and by first-time winners, I mean guys who've been playing the course the first time. Schauffele won playing the course the first time. Cabrera was playing the course the first time. Ted Potter Jr., when he won, I think it was 2013, he was playing it the first time. Even Scott Stallings was playing the course the first time. So I'm not worried about Ryan Moore's lack of course history this week. Another player I'll probably just be biting the bullet and getting back on. I think we're just getting, at the Travelers, maybe he was too expensive. And I was paying up for lower ownership, whatever, or just paying up because I didn't want to miss the boat. I think he's priced nice now, especially in this field. I think if you're worrying about the miscut with Ryan Moore, you're overlooking the strokes gained strength that he has been this year. So 8,900 for me right now. I'm looking at this field and I'm thinking I don't mind taking that for Ryan Moore. And one of the main reasons why I don't mind taking that is because after him it does get more sketchy. Danny Lee at 8,800. Sure, he's won here before. Sure, he's got the nice course history, but God, paying up to 88 for 100 for Danny Lee, no thanks. I mean, I was on him a little bit at Colonial. I thought maybe he was going to put together a nice stretch, but he's just been so off and on after that. I'm not going to get back on him here. Kevin Na, people were worried about jet lag last week. They're probably right. T64 maybe bounces back here. Not a horrible price, I guess, in this field. Kevin Streelman's really interesting. I think some people were expecting him to make a run in the final round last week. I will say this about Kevin Streelman. He has been one of the worst final round players on tour this year. If you go look at final round scoring averages, he's been pretty solid. He's been one of the best players in this field, tee to green, over the last couple events. But, putting wise, around the green, he does struggle. Maybe this is where he puts it together. I don't know. I don't really like paying up this price for Kevin Streelman. I like Streelman when he's cheaper, when he's a little bit under the radar. Doesn't have the greatest course history of this event. I'm probably fine just staying off him here. If he bounces back and gets it down here, that's fine. I'm not sure. Betting odds wise, 45 to 1. I guess it's not terrible. Again, though, past winners have had to have good putting weeks here, and I just don't know if I trust Kevin Streelman to do that. Kind of the same story with Keegan Bradley. I like Keegan Bradley more for fantasy than betting, even though he does have the strong course history here. Good bounce back spot for him. He did make the cut at the Travelers, so I guess not really a bounce back, but still, he's got the course history here that you want, especially for 8,500 in this field. It's not a horrible price at all. Just going to go through his course history here quickly. Bring it up. But yeah, I mean, 50th 2017, 29th, 4th. So he's got a little bit upside. Another player who's very strong off the tee. Should be okay here. After that, things start getting sketchy. I mean, Jamie Lovemark, Patrick Rogers, guys I've been riding. They definitely both fell off a bit last week, especially Lovemark, who just had a disaster final round. Not sure if I want to get right back on him. Rogers, I'd still be interested. I mean, 7,800, that's $1,000 discount off of Patrick Rogers from last week in basically the same field. So, Patrick Rogers has been playing better. I feel like he's all around, he's not been super weak in one area. So I don't mind staying back on him for 7,800. The rest of the players in this range, you have a mix of good players playing bad, like Kevin Kisner, maybe Aaron Wise I'd throw there, Ollie, maybe Kevin Chappell. And then you have a mix of what I call not elite players playing well. So you have Andrew Putnam at 7,800, Ryan Armour at 7,700, Ryan Blom at 7,900, and Brian Gay at 8,100, probably thrown there too. It's a really interesting mix. I don't know how much longer these guys like Blom and Armour and Putnam are going to keep putting up massive weeks. I would guess that you see guys like Kisner, Chappell, maybe not Chappell. Chappell's been crappy lately, but maybe a guy like Kisner pops up this week and turns the season around a little bit. I mean, Kevin Kisner lost in the playoff here one year, missed the cut at the U.S. Open, 74th at the Memorial. He's had a pretty crappy season, especially for a guy like Kevin Kisner, who's been really consistent on tour. So outside of the playoff loss, he's actually missed 4 cuts here. So I guess it's not a guarantee Kevin Kisner bounces back, but I wouldn't be super scared of playing Kevin Kisner, I guess. I just feel like he's too good a player to keep missing cuts. And this is a venue where I'd say over time he'll probably have more good weeks than not, but interesting spot for him at 8K, especially grouped in with guys like Blom and Putnam. So of that group, I think I'd feel best with Andrew Putnam, like going back to Andrew Putnam. Played solidly for 2 rounds last week, kind of fell off a little bit at the end, but still T27. Doing everything pretty well. I think I trust him more than a guy like Blom in that range for sure. Ryan Armour, kind of a similar story. Kevin Chappell, I just don't know. I just another player, just not a good season, but 7,700. The price in this field is very tempting. I tried to get on Kevin Chappell at the FedEx St. Jude in a similar situation. Didn't work out. I'm probably just in more of a wait-and-see mode. And then you have Ollie at 7,700. I will say this about Ollie. As people know, probably listen to the podcast. I'm on Ollie a lot. I've been on Ollie a lot this year. I've been off him lately. Obviously, the TD Green game has been bad. He started to come to life a little bit last week. A little bit better ball striking numbers. And I will say this about him: he has been grinding. His around the green game, his putting has been very, very good. And when you take a guy who's been grinding like that, who's been doing the other things good while still dealing with, subpar ball striking, when he does get that game together, I feel like he's just going to pop. So we kind of saw him in a similar situation at the Wyndham last year where he just put it together. He came off like a couple missed cuts in a row, put together that solo second performance where he was like 21 under for the week. I just feel like he's going to do it soon. I don't mind taking a shot with him in this field at 7,700. Even if he does just make the cut next week and doesn't do anything else, he's still, at that price, not going to hurt you really. He's still got a high birdie percentage. So I feel like this field, this venue could be a nice bounce back spot for him for like a top 10 or something. I'm going to get on him this week. I feel like on some level, maybe it's betting. I think he's around 90 to 1. I might hit that up tonight. But I like that we saw some signs of life from him. And like I said, the ball striking, the off the tee game has not been good, but it improved a little bit last week. And that putting and around the green game has been really sharp for him. So just something to consider on Ollie. You don't have to jump on him with me this week if you don't want, but don't be shocked if he does pop soon. Once we get below him, things obviously thin out a little bit. Ted Potter Jr. has actually been playing pretty consistent, which is kind of funny to say because he was so bad there for a while. But he's made a few cuts. T23 last week, got a good course history. Might be a bit of an interesting play this week. But going down, I think the guys that interest me the most here are actually JJ Spawn and a guy named Brandon Hagee. Hagee coming back from an injury, injury, I guess, vacation. He was injured basically at the OHL Classic, couldn't play, got back on the web.com tour, took a few warm-up starts, almost won his second event out. So he's looking back in really good form. And Hagee is literally one of the biggest hitters on tour. He might be the biggest hitter off the tee. So he's going to be able to absolutely bomb it on some of these par fours. He's going to have, sand wedge, lob wedges in while other guys are hitting like 9-irons. I don't mind Hagee this week for GPPs. Definitely capable of making a ton of birdies on this course. It's going to be interesting. I know it's his first tournament back, but at this price in this field, I will probably get on him at this price range. JJ Spawn is interesting. While he played well last week, the TD Green game, numbers are still there for him. I think I might even like him on this course a little bit more than last week, which was just a little bit too penal for for around the green and for JJ Spawn, I think, to keep it going. But this might be a little bit better venue for him. I do not believe Spawn played here last year, but let's just check things out here. No, he did. Spawn did play here last year, T29, which is certainly not bad. But Spawn's been very strong off the tee this year. I mean, it's one of his best areas as well. So I think JJ, Brandon Hagee, both looking like elite tournament plays for me in this range. Both capable of good weeks. Wouldn't be shocked to see a guy like Richie Wentz bounce back. He was kind of one of our bigger disappointments, ranked pretty high. Steve and I both kind of liked him as a lower owned tournament play. Did not work. Actually started, he was like 3 under after 9 holes, and then it just went to hell. But missed the cut last week, obviously. Could be a good bounce back spot for Richie. TD Green, he's been quite good over his last 4 or 5 starts, so we'll see. Obviously, as we get going down further here, I don't have a ton more thoughts. Brandon Harkins has been playing well. Another guy kind of like Ollie, where he's been putting and playing around the green better, but his off the tee stats improved a little bit last week. 7,100 making cuts. I don't hate that at all. Tyler Duncan is actually a player I would stay on here as well. He kind of faded in round 4 last week, but tee to green, this guy's been immaculate. So his approaches have been very strong. Again, maybe not as good off the tee, but at 7,100 in this field, I don't mind either of those players. I think I might even prefer Duncan more just because I feel like his tee to green game has been a bit stronger. But again, for this price in the same field, 2 players I just don't mind staying on for one more week. As we keep going down the field, I don't have a ton of thoughts on most of these players. I mean, Zach Blair, you could get back on. Jim Furyk at 7,000, sure. had that good run at the U.S. Open for a bit until he shot 80 in round 4, but not a whole lot. Corey Connors at 7K, meh. What did Corey Connors? I made the cut last week, so I mean 7K for Corey Connors in this field, not bad. Probably a player I'll be considering, especially once we see the data come out tomorrow from the Survival Guide and stuff like that. But moving down, Peter Malnati was a guy we were high on last week, another player who's a little bit disappointing from a value perspective, but could easily bounce back with a bigger week here. Fabian Gomez, actually, is maybe a player to get on. Strangely enough, this guy's made 5 straight cuts now. And just another player, a strong tee to green game, hits a lot of fairways when he's ball striking well. Stronger with his approaches. T32 last week. I kind of joked about Steve with him when we were looking for value plays, but he was really trending well in the Survival Guide, and he kind of did pay off for us. And at 6,900, I can't say I hate that again. I can't say I hate going back to the well with him. People forget he's won twice on tour, and I mean he won twice. I think it was twice in 2015. So very capable player, Fabian Gomez, 6,900, trending well. I don't mind that play here. And one of the reasons I don't mind it is because there's just not a lot else to go on. Sam Ryder, player I think Steve liked last week. I think he's made the bets. T48, still playing pretty well. Don't mind getting back on him. Sean O'Hare's back in the field, 6,800. Might be a good GPP play. Got a couple decent starts here under his career. And it sounds silly because he hasn't played for a bit. He might have a bit of injury layoff, but I actually don't mind going to him here because he's cheaper. Normally he'd be in the 7,500 range if he was making cuts, but he can definitely pop up after layoff. So I wouldn't put anyone off Sean O'Hare at 6,800. Considering the weakness of the field. John Peterson there too. This is John Peterson's last start on his medical exemption. He needs at least $60,000 and needs to make at least $60,000 in this event to keep his conditional status for the rest of the year. So, he hasn't played much this year. John Peterson, when he's at his best, very elite ball striker though. Came out on social media last week, said he was swinging it well. Said maybe this is going to keep him from retiring. He's been mulling retirement, but he's a player I might have some interest in. I might have some exposure to John Peterson this week. It's always interesting when players get put up against the wall in some kind of situation. They need that big event. We've seen players really come through in some of those situations. I'm reminded of Martin Flores from the Wyndham Championship last year, where he absolutely had to have a big week to keep his tour card. And I mean, he did it. He was top 10. I think he had a hole-in-one in the final round. But, it's an interesting situation for John Peterson. I wouldn't be shocked to see him in the top 20 or contending at some point this week. I'm not saying he's going to win or anything, but, again, in this weak field, at a sub 7K price, O'Hare, Peterson, I don't mind either of those guys taking shots at this week. So, one of the main reasons is there's just not much under them that interests me at all. Maybe Steve will have some more interesting ideas or plays popping up when we get the Survival Guide out. But for me, that's pretty much it. After going under 6,800, maybe a guy like Adam Schenk, going back to him, he made the cut last week, was trending for us for a bit, but he might be getting it back together. Blaine Barber, he's made a couple cuts. Blaine Barber is someone at 6,400 where I guess if you were really stacking up those players like in the 8K range and you wanted to go with Blaine Barber, I wouldn't hate it. He's made a couple cuts in a row now. And he did play actually really well at the Travelers. So I'm just going to check his course history here. He has missed the cut here twice, so I mean, it's not great. But at the same time, he's coming in with a little bit better form. And, at 6,400 might be a little bit undervalued there. So if you're going to the min, a guy who pops off the page of me just at very first glance here, Blaine Barber might be someone to consider. Again, really just need a made cut from him if you're going that deep. But anyways, that's pretty much it for the Wyndham. I don't have a ton of huge thoughts on this event. Like I said, it kind of feels like just a repeat of last week. I do think this is a great spot for Russell Henley to get a win. If I'm going with a pick, I'm going Russell Henley. I'm expecting bounce back weeks from Ryan Moore, JB Holmes. If you're asking for some kind of sleeper, I'd probably say JJ Spawn or Brandon Hagee. Maybe go a little bit deeper with a guy like Tyler Duncan. Finally pops up with a big week, but I'll be honest. I'm a little bit more interested in the European event last week. I mean, the French Open, if you guys did catch it, pretty exciting stuff. I mean, the French Open, the Golf Club de National, it's going to be the site of the Ryder Cup, and man, that course plays tough. If you watch the finishing hole there, the 18th, almost impossible for players to make a par there. Very tough driving hole. It's going to be great theater for the Ryder Cup, but Alex Noren came back from, I think it was 5 strokes down the final round, had a 4 under, posted 7, and then the players around him just wilted. Chris Wood, the guy I was on, if you followed my Twitter, I got on Chris Wood betting wise at 90-1 late Wednesday night because I just felt like his course history here and he was trending in the right direction. He just about came through. He had it at -7 with two holes to go, bogeyed the 17th, and then parred the 18th and got in at -6. So nice top 5 finish for me, but yeah, a little disappointing. I felt like he was going to ship it, but Alex Noren deserved it, man. I mean, guy we've been on all year, is a little disappointing that we couldn't get on him for betting purposes because he was only 15-1, but he's trending in the right direction for the Open too. So, and just as far as the French Open relates to the Open Championship, Sergio Garcia, 2 solid weeks in a row, was really driving it well in Germany a couple weeks ago. Followed that up with a good week in France, his first time at the course. He was in contention all week. I won't lie, I started to add some Sergio at the Open. I feel like 28-1 for Sergio, who's trending well right now, driving it better, strong tee to green. I think that's a fair price. I think you might see him closer to 20-1 once the week of the Open gets here. So, in my opinion, if you're on the fence with Sergio, you're better to get in now. You know, if you want to wait for the each ways of the week of, you might get like top 7, top 8. I understand that, but if you're going for the outright win, I feel like I've seen enough from Sergio the last 2 weeks. I'm in on Sergio at the Open now. He was my preseason pick, but he played well last week. You take out basically 2 holes for Sergio last week, he wins that tournament by 5. And I'm not being facetious. He had a couple like triple bogeys over the weekend. Just mental errors that I think he put it in the water twice. I think it was the first hole on Sunday, and then he bounced back with like 4 birdies on the front 9. So he's getting there. He's really sharp. I feel like he's shaping up very well for the Open. Obviously, he's got the experience at Carnoustie. And I also got more piece of Alex Noren. I already had a bit of a piece of Alex Noren for the Open before, but added some more at 40-1. His price has probably dropped since then too. I wouldn't be shocked, but Alex Noren, another guy, is trending well. So right now I'm headed towards with Sergio, Alex Noren, a little bit of Paul Casey as we mentioned last week. Actually, quite a big piece of Paul Casey. And a little bit of Martin Keimer. So I'm on 4 Europeans. That's probably going to be all I add for the Open until the week of. But I do like the way Sergio's trending right now. I feel like if you're just looking the fact he didn't get it done last week, you're overlooking him. I don't mind the 28-1 price on him right now for the Open. So this week in Europe, Irish Open, they're playing. I can't exactly remember what the course is called, but it's a pure links course. It's apparently shaping up like a really another cool venue. They have some very cool venues over in Europe. I like watching it, especially when they get the strong fields. But looks like they're going to get pretty good weather, but it's going to be a pure links test. Couple guys I'm already on. Paul Dunn, 33-1. He played pretty solidly in France last week. This is like a major championship for the Irish guys. Paul Dunn is obviously a very, very good links player. Led the Open Championship in 2015 after round 3. Obviously, he's Irish, so he's grown up on a lot of these courses. But I think that's a very good price for Paul Dunn. He was around the same price last week, and after seeing him put in a solid week there, and then going to his home country's event, I'm all in on that. I love that narrative, especially on a links setup. I think he could be in for a real week. So definitely, I like that as a play. And then I also like Lucas Bergard. If you look at Lucas Bergard, what he did last week, he made a ton of birdies and a ton of bogeys. But I feel like this Open link style might be a bit more better suited to his game. I always refer to Bergard as the Danish Koepka. He can bomb it, but he can also do a lot of other things well. And now that he's not in this tighter sort of water surrounded course, you might see him just post a really low score last week. So 66-1, I'm in on him. Also in on Matthew Southgate, very good links player at 100-1. I actually had a little piece of him last week. He ended up T5, so he got me another T5. So got all my money from Europe last week. But those are the 3 guys I'm on so far. I'll post some European Tour plays on the Tuesday article, like I did last week. Especially if you're playing DFS, I'll try and just nothing long, but just identify a few of the values and the bets. So look for that to drop on Tuesday. I'll have the regular DFS targets there for the Greenbrier and the Tuesday article too. The Monday article, just doing a recap of the Quicken and quick recap of what's coming up on the Greenbrier for the week, is already up on the site, so you can check that out, fantasygolfmetrics.com. But that's pretty much it for this week, guys. Good couple weeks coming up. Obviously, we got a little bit more interesting field this week. Next week at the John Deere Classic, that's always actually kind of an interesting event because it's such a birdie fest, and it's such a lead up to the Open as well. So we're getting there. We're almost at the Open Championship, one of my favorite events of the year for sure. But definitely do check us out. I'm on Twitter as @TheFantasyGrind. Steve is on Twitter as @FGMetrics. And go to the website, fantasygolfmetrics.com. But thanks for listening, guys. Have a great week at the Greenbrier, and we'll talk to you again soon.